Good morning, everybody. My name is Ed Cook, and I am a SCORE volunteer here in Canton, Ohio. Um, Before we start, just a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. Number one is we will be sending you a copy of Jim's PowerPoint, and a recording of it will be posted on our website at canton.score.org, I believe. Excuse me. Jim has asked that we kind of hold the questions till he pauses, like about 10 slides in. So if any questions come in, you can throw them into the chat or the Q&A, and then when Jim pauses, he'll answer your question. And after the webinar is completed, you will receive a short survey that kind of tells us how good or bad job we did at this. So for those of you that are not aware, SCORE is a national nonprofit organization. We began back in 1964, and it's grown to over 225 chapters, and we have over 11,000 volunteers like myself. Besides sponsoring educational workshops like this for small businesses, we counsel small businesses, and that's really what we're all about. Um, we are the counselors to America's small businesses. So if you have an idea that you want to start a business, or you have a business and you're struggling in some aspect of it, we're the person to call. Actually, you can see our contact information on the screen now. Let's see. Our counseling is free and it's confidential. And we do nonprofits as well as for-profits. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Well, we're funded locally by the Stark Community Foundation and the Hoover Foundation and the Greater Canton Chamber of Commerce. And we're a resource partner with the SBA. Our office is located in Stark at the Stark State University, is in the Business and Entrepreneur Building, 3rd floor. We can meet you there. We can do it over the phone. We can do it over an email, Zoom. We kind of tailor it to whatever you need, basically. So today we have a very cool speaker. His name is Jim Lichtenberg. He comes to us from a company by the name of Schooley Mitchell, and you'll learn a lot of pretty cool stuff. I think the kind of tells you what cost optimization is. You'll learn about operations costs, whether they're fixed or variable, low-hanging fruit. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Jim, it's all yours.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate the introduction and appreciate the opportunity to talking with everybody today on the topic of cost optimization. I appreciate all of you joining us and hope you take some nuggets away, take a few items that you could implement into your business and hopefully provide some cost savings and make your business a little bit better. So to get started, we're going to go to the first slide here, and you're going to notice right away by the layout, I like to fish. So it's one of my most favorite hobbies to do. And I kind of relate it to what we're talking about today because it's all about opportunities. What lies beneath can be significant and impactful. Well, if anybody goes fishing, you don't know what's under the water generally, and you're trying to get the right lure in the right place to get a big fish. So that's what we're trying to do today with cost optimization. What tools, what strategies, what processes can you put in place to make a significant impact to your business by doing the right things. So there's a quote I like to refer to by Gartner. Gartner is a large consulting firm. So in all the years they were doing and working with businesses, they identified that a 5% reduction in operating costs can have the same P&L impact as 30% increase in sales. Now, I like bringing that up because there's a lot of investment on growing the sales side of your business. And that's great. You want to increase your business. You want to grow it. You need to have sales, obviously, to operate your business. But what gets lost in the dust, if you will, a lot of times is nobody's looking at the cost. They just think it's inherent to the operation. There's not a lot of options to it. Or they might not even know where to turn. Hey, I'm not sure if this is right or not, but hey, it's working. And if it's not broke, don't fix it type mentality. But if anybody tried to increase sales by 30%, there's a lot of activities. There's a lot of effort to do that. So if you can put some effort to increasing sales, but then also divert some effort into looking at the bottom line, reducing operational costs by 5% can have that same impact as the 30% sales. Boy, you should be doing it at both ends then. Work both sides of your business, and you could grow a really great, strong business. So keep that in mind. So we're going to look at, comes to mind, what's a good time to look at operation costs? Well, you probably already know my first answer. Any time is good. If you can make your business better, a little bit more efficient, a little bit leaner, more profitable, you should be doing it. I'll specifically look at some notable stages that might make more sense to say for you to start it, because you might have been thinking about it, but when do you actually hit the button? Well, it could be business transition. Now that could be selling of your business. If you're selling your business, you need time to make it more profitable. The more profit and cash flow you have, the more you're going to get for your business. Don't leave dollars on the table. If you're buying a business and the business you're buying did not have the opportunity to optimize themselves, great time to jump in there, look at all these costs. How can you make that business more profitable? And just as importantly, how can you, improve that return on investment? Growth strategies. Okay, you want to grow your business. What items might you need to invest in? Is it people? Is it technology? So these are things that you could be finding monies from other parts of the business to put into these growth strategies. It could just be a get leaner and meaner type attitude. Hey, we're doing good. We feel we're pretty optimized, but let's get a little bit leaner, because you never know when that next cycle of, the market might change on you, and you want to have the ability to have more cash in hand to handle those potholes, those items in the road as you navigate your business to remain strong. Human capital investment, probably, if not everybody, probably 90% of the people on this webinar, at least for the people that I know I talk to every day, this topic comes up. It's hard to find people. It's hard to find the right people, and it's hard to keep the right people. So there's a cost in that. There's a cost of finding people, and there's a cost of retaining people. So doing some cost-saving strategies could be that investment arm you need for human capital investment in your business. And it could be facility, equipment investment. Maybe you need to buy, a machine. Maybe you need to upgrade a break room, just things that would be nice to get done, improve your business, make it more efficient, find dollars you're already spending somewhere else. So timing is everything. So the question is, why would you wait to see if you're overpaying on something? Right? Do you want to save money now, or do you want to pay other people providing you various services for your business more than you should? This brings about time to question the roadblocks. At times, I'm also a business owner. Schooley Mitchell is a franchise organization. So sometimes you get in the way of yourself, and this is what you got to get over these hurdles. I hear this a lot through all of my career. This is how we always done it. Well, just because you're always doing it and it's working today does not mean it's the best way to do it. And it might not be the most efficient or cost-effective way. It's okay to challenge things that currently work. Doesn't mean you're going to change it, but you should challenge it. See what might be available out there. You know, we've been making good enough money, right? You know, money's in the bank account, cash flow's been good, you're happy with the business. But are you as happy as you could be? Could there be more money inflowing into the business? Could you grow your business more because you create more cash flow? There's a lot of opportunities there, and it's really about how can you make your business better, ability to grow and not stay stagnant. Because again, if something turns in the business cycle, if something turns in the markets, you want to be prepared so you are at the lowest pay, you know, the lowest cost amount for the services that you're paying for when things happen. So this is when you're questioning, okay, so when we set this up, was it really the best pricing? You know, that goes back to, you know, hey, you know, we're making enough money, we were good enough. Well, maybe you weren't. Maybe you thought you set it up for the best pricing, but maybe it isn't. Or maybe it isn't today. Is it the best option for us now? You know, there's a lot of changes in business that I've seen where what they had set up was really good when they started, but then due to growth, due to technology changes, due to just changes in their process, what they're using is actually, you know, is an encumbrance to what they could be doing. So you could always have an improvement just by going through this process and questioning it. And then what's your time frame? You know, what do you want it the time frame needed to get something done, to get cost hitting reduced and cash flow being increased into your business. So how does it help? Again, it's what lies beneath. So if you decrease costs, for example, you're spending $1,000 on shipping, you go and negotiate 30% reduction. That's fantastic. That's a great number. That's $300 a month. If you do that in July, you should be realizing that in August. Boom, there's cash flow. Now you have more month-to-month flexibility. So that just could be general flexibility for your business, making you be able to manage it better. You could use that money then for business improvements. You could use that money for growth strategies and initiatives. It could be even to be able to pay down more of your debt. So you have less debt on the books and you become more efficient from that perspective. It's going to increase profitability. These costs we're talking about directly impact your bottom line. So if you don't use those things for those, you know, cash flow flexibilities of business improvements and business strategies, it goes right down to the bottom line. So it's all the opportunity to find real dollars for your business on items that you're already spending on something else today. Now, a lot of questions I get asked is, well, you know, where do I start? We're going to go through a process here of identifying what you should be thinking about, what you should be looking into. How do you identify the cost? How do you look at, do I do it or do I hire an external resource? Build up a process. The one thing that hurts most business owners, in my experience, is the one and done. And we'll get to that, but this is what I'm going to walk through the process so you have the ability to identify, create a process, implement, and not just for today, not just short term, but for long term. So when you look at where do you start? Evaluate your P&L. There's operational fixed costs and there's operational variable process costs. Now, when I think about fixed costs, I'm going to give some examples here. It's around, they generally stay the same month over month. There might be changes year over year, but generally month to month, they're going to stay relatively the same. Communication, waste removals, you know, human management, health benefits, leases. These are all things that, again, month to month, even if you have changes in sales, these generally stay the same. Right? They're ones that you budgeted for. This is what we're going to pay for phones. This is what we're paying for waste removal. Not a lot of variable to them. Now, the variable process costs, there is. These are costs like shipping and merchant services and utilities that the more sales you have, the more things you're building or the more people you're seeing. If you're a service company, you know, you're going out and doing service work or you're shipping units out the door, those all costs are going to vary. So if you have a month where you're shipping 100 items and then the next month you're shipping 300, you're going to have an increase of cost. Your sales should reflect it. It's going to reflect that increase, but the costs are going to go up. So that's what I mean by variable costs. Some of the process, same with materials, that's directly related to if you're a manufacturer, you're building something, or even if you're a marketing company, you still need paper, you still need, toner, you still need some things like that. That's going to be variable based on what you're doing. Inventory management. I'm going to talk about that because it's probably one of the biggest items that gets overlooked today. If you hold any kind of inventory, this could be a manufacturing company, you could be a service company that you're holding parts for, a air conditioning heater unit. It could be industrial parts for certain types of equipment. It might even be if you have an auto repair shop. What do you keep on the shelf versus, calling down the road to a supplier to deliver later that day? Very important and strategic to think about your inventory management. Lean manufacturing process. Now, it can be lean, meaning it's a service organization, or we're really maximizing our people's utilization out on the road. Do we know where they're at? Or it can be true manufacturing, going through all the steps of a process of how something gets made. If you have scrap material, how are you utilizing it? How are you getting rid of it? How much are you getting paid on it? Is there money there that you could be recouping for your business that you're not today? And again, could be many more depending on your business. So now that we talked about, okay, you got fixed costs, you got variable costs, you're starting to think in your mind, okay, what are some of the things that maybe we looked at when we haven't looked at in a while? Now you're talking about, okay, look at your P&L to go, okay, what are some high cost items? Because the higher the cost for your business, that could mean, the more impactful savings could be. And you have low hanging fruit. That generally means you can implement it in a time frame that you can realize it quicker. Still might have a great impact, but it's something that, hey, let's go look at to see if we can get done versus some of the higher cost items that are more complicated. So we look at high cost items. Again, they might be more complex. These are the things we're talking about: inventory management, lean process, those types of things. You want to identify, when you look at these items for the high cost items, do we have the expertise to do it ourselves? We just talk about human management, and what I hear mostly from business owners is they don't have enough people. They don't have enough resources, and it's hard to retain the people that they want to retain. So this becomes an important part of your process. If you want to do it yourself, you want to do it with somebody on their team, you got to determine, with the cost benefit analysis, do we have the right resources to do it? Can we make that happen? High cost items, since due to their complexity, they're generally longer ramp times to realize savings, but maybe more impactful than the low hanging fruit. That's why you got to look at both sides of it. You have to develop a proper plan and process for long-term success. You're going to be hearing that through a couple slides here, because it's very important. That gets missed all too often. As I mentioned, examples are lean ops, health benefits, inventory management, could be payroll. Again, more things that you usually need an external resource to help you with. So low-hanging fruit. Still might be complicated markets where you need some resources and expertise on. Again, you got to identify who's the right person to do it. Do we have the people and the resources available to do it? Or do we do it external? Again, a cost-benefit analysis. These generally have shorter ramp times. And the other example with the high-cost items, it could be 9 months to a year, and I'll go through some examples on that. The low-hanging fruit a lot of times can be 3 to 6 months, so it can be quicker to realize the savings, and still, obviously, impactful to your business. Still have to develop a proper plan and process for long-term success, no matter which way you go. Examples of this is, shipping and telecom and waste removal. Some of these you got to understand the contracts, which I'm going to talk about. But again, it's just identifying what are some things that, hey, we haven't looked at in a while, and that could really be impactful with a quote unquote quick turn, because it could be, less than 6 months and you're realizing savings. So we talked about proper planning, or at least I mentioned it. Now we're going to get in more detail about it. So it's about creating a plan and ongoing process for long-term success. Now, before I get into this, I'll tell you from my experience, a lot of business owners, they can do a good job on the initial planning and execution. Either they do it themselves or they find somebody, they implement some of these costs. Boy, they feel good, but they miss the ongoing process. And I'll give you an example once I go through these. So the initial plan execution, you got to evaluate the cost centers and determine most impactful. We went through that, identifying fixed cost, variable cost, high cost items, low hanging fruits. You start thinking about those 2 or 3 that, boy, would be impactful to my organization if I put some time to it and looked at it. And then you want to review the resources available to execute the cost savings. Do we have that person available? I'm going to give a quick example. You have Mary in the office. She already has wearing, 2, 3, 4 hats. She has a lot of stuff on her plate, but you feel like, hey, if we have her do half a day a week, in 2, 3 months, we can identify some cost savings and implement it. There's a cost of doing that. There's a hard cost of Mary's time to try to do the research, to try to learn what's going on, and to try to get quotes and understand what that process is. It's something you can't overlook. And if it's your own time being the business owner, that cost at least doubled, if not tripled, what you should be doing the cost benefit analysis on, because the business is run through you. Cost benefit analysis, we're going to go through some examples with that. It's all about driving for maximizing savings and the least impact to your business. Again, can Mary, 4 hours a week looking at this, can that happen? And then you got to be okay with the fact that other stuff's not going to get done. And what if Mary couldn't get a half a day in this week because something else took priority? Now this project gets, delayed a couple more months. All considerations. And then you got to verify the implementation. So, hey, we negotiated, my example before, we negotiated 30% for shipping. Boy, we feel good. That was in July. Boom, we look at it in August. Yep, we got the savings. Boy, we feel really good. You have to verify it. So there's a lot of work, as you can imagine, right now up front. You're doing a lot of things. This is where most of us, including myself in the past, this is where sometimes we falter, where it's that ongoing process. We feel really good. We got the savings implemented, but we don't have a process with an audit strategy where we're looking at these same costs that we just reduced, that we just negotiated for on a monthly or quarterly basis. Now you're doing this so those costs do not get out of control. I think we've all been there. We've all looked at costs in our in our business or even our personal lives where you look at something, you're like, why am I paying this much? You get on the phone for a few hours, or it's could be even a couple of days. You get the savings, you feel good, and you forget about it. Other things become priority. 2, 3 years later, it happens to hit you. You look at that bill going, how did it get like this? It's because there wasn't an audit process in place. Very important for long-term savings. Should also review contract terms on an annual basis. You should always be identifying what's coming up for renewal. If you have an auto renewal, do we want it to auto renewal or do we want to stop it? There's a lot of tight time frames for canceling an auto renewal. So then you can go and put it back out for bid and see if you can get more savings. You should do that on an annual basis. You should know what's expiring every year on a contract basis. Should be perform annual market reviews. So this is something that's, once a year you go, just like I said with the contract review. Hey, we notice our waste removal is going to be coming up. Let's do our auto renewal cancellation letter. We'll get it then in place because we're going to go and try to get incremental savings this year. Or it could be shipping. Hey, we got that 30%. It's been a year. Let's just take it back up and see, can we get 5 or 10% more? These annual market reviews are more about incremental steps to savings. A lot of times you get a lot of savings up front, or opportunity for savings up front. What can you incrementally improve on? Don't leave dollars on the table. That's going to be my biggest thing I'm going to keep saying. If you don't do things, you're just leaving money on the table. Now, when you put this process in place, you can extend it across all cost centers. And continuous review of the above is critical for long-term success. So that's the area that I feel most businesses could use help in, is that ongoing process. So then the question comes up, who should do it? I've talked about that a couple of times. Do you use, internal resource Mary, or is there somebody external that might be a better option? So we're going to go through a cost benefit analysis with that. I'm not going to throw a lot of numbers at you. It's more of just what you need to think about. So you got to question and determine things like, do we have the resources available for both sides of the process? Can you do the initial cost saving portion to identify vendors, get quotes, verify who's best in the marketplace, implement and verify. That's that first step. Then the second step is the ongoing, it's the long-term process, it's the audit. Who's going to be looking at that every month or every quarter? That's what you got to think about. Think about it in both those steps. You need the resources when you identify it should be for both steps. Can you do it internally, or do you need somebody external to do it? And again, part of that is industry expertise, understanding contract terms, pricing and pricing benchmarks. Is there technology? All that should be part of your evaluation. Can we properly evaluate vendors? I remember probably 20 years ago, if you went and looked into waste removal, you'd be lucky if you found, there's 2 options available. Today, with some of my clients, there's 7 or more. So that whole environment has drastically changed. So out of that 7, is it the ones that you knew about 20 years ago, or are some of the new ones providing better service and better pricing? So it's understanding and evaluating who is the best vendors. That's part of the process. You got to determine if you're doing it yourself or an outsourced expert, can they evaluate it for you? And then if you do use internal resources, what's not going to get done? What project isn't going to get done? If you're giving a project to Mary to work on, even though you think it's not impactful at, a half a day per week, there's something that's going to fall off the plate. There's something that's not going to get done. And then you got to just understand that parameter. And then what's the savings opportunity? Hey, if it's 10%, she's spending this much time. We think it's going to take, maybe 40, 50 hours for her to do it. If we say 10%, are we making up our money? You got to do that return on investment. Are we going to be ahead of the game? Outsourcing it, you have a lot of the similar questions, because you got to have a qualified person or company available. They really got to be experts. They got to have some pedigree. They got to have some history, case studies. They got to show that they're able to do it for that cost category. Somebody that you have doing something for telecom might not be the right fit for inventory management. Those are 2 totally different things. So make sure you have the right expert for the cost category that you want to investigate and optimize. Let's see. So can we verify their work? That's really important. You don't want to report that as something you can't track, follow, do the math yourself. It should be very transparent. It should be, yep, we can easily verify the work. Their savings are documenting as true savings. We're seeing it. We're realizing it. Is it going to free up internal resources so that, either current projects get completed or newer projects that we want to get done, we can get done. So it's more of a dual path line. Hey, we got this path here that we're going to do internally, that we're going to work on our business. And then we have this path here that's more of the external resources looking at cost optimization. So kind of working in parallel together. Can that happen? And then can the external expert or resource perform both the initial savings process and the long-term audit process? Again, you don't want to invest time and monies into cost optimization, and then you're left holding the bag to do the audits yourself. It should be all-encompassing when you're going out for an outsourcing expert resource. Okay, so who should do it? So we are at a point now. I'm sorry. And then the savings opportunity that you have, again, at the end of the day, if you do it for your internal, folks and you're saying it's 10% savings, and history with an outsource is saying, 30, 40%, that's some easy math. Generally, it's going to be a better opportunity for you. So again, you got to evaluate what's the cost, is it contingency based, what internal resources are needed for outsourcing, and then seeing what the savings opportunity is. So we reached slide 10. This is the time before I move forward with some case studies. I wanted to see if there's any questions going on. I see a couple in Q&A. So let me read these real quick. So the question is, let's say a company secures the lowest cost for good quality option and engage in a contract for them to deliver on. If for whatever reason something comes up fairly last minute where they cannot deliver, and we then need to approach our second and third best choice manufacturers or second or third best choice service providers to step in for them, how do we avoid being charged the wazoo? Love the technical term in these scenarios. I would imagine the pricing by the parties realizing we need an order fulfilled within a day or two would realize that a first choice fell through, and so on. And so now anyone business savvy would likely try to take advantage of price gouging. Great question. Some of it looks like it's more towards the manufacturing, like you have 3 quotes for a part. The lowest cost provider fell through. Now you're going to the other ones. In that scenario, just from my experience, you have a quote from them. You don't have to diverge why you decided to go with them versus the other one. Even if they knew that you went with the other one, it could be that, hey, we're getting additional supplies from a second supplier. So you don't have to say why the cake's, why you have to remake the cake. So that's one, because you have a hard quote from them. When you're looking at a service provider, like maybe it's a waste removal, and I actually had an example with a client where there was a low cost recommendation. They even did a site survey. We signed everything, went to go put it in place. And when they went to drop off the dumpster, they said, oh, there's no way that this is going to work. It's a limited space. We're not going to be able to get the truck in. We're not going to be able to maneuver it. So in that situation, since they could not deliver, and we were handling it for them, so it wasn't my client dealing with it. We were dealing with it for them. So as that was identified that this is a problem, we went to the next source solution, got approved by our client. Hey, this is the right thing to do. Canceled everything with the first option because they couldn't deliver. They couldn't deliver on their contract terms. So there are opportunities out there. You are right. You got to be careful. You got to be careful how you structure it. Sometimes the provider will admit, raise their hand, hey, we can't do this as quoted. So you need to talk through it. In my situation, there was not an option. They tried to go through 2 or 3 different options on getting different waste removal bins there. It didn't work. They put up their hands and go, hey, we apologize for this, and got out of the contract. That's the best thing that you can do is, try to resolve the problem that's least impactful for your client. But again, especially in that manufacturing piece, if you have quotes available, but we didn't get a requote from the second provider. We said, hey, our client, needs your services now, and they held their pricing. So again, you don't have to tell them why you have to rebake the cake. It's the best way I can put it for you. Okay, second question.
Hey, Jim, can I throw my 2 cents in there?
Oh, please do it.
Yeah, I mean, it could come down to having a relationship with all of your vendors. You know what I mean? It's like, hopefully they just don't show up, give you a quote, and you never see or hear from them again. I'm assuming you would have some kind of a working relationship with them, and so I think that comes into play. I mean, I don't know if it's wrong to say, hey, our supplier kind of is letting us down. We're in a pickle. Can you help us out? And take that approach as well. So there's a couple different ways you can handle it. Thanks.
Yeah. No, good point, Ed. I was thinking it from a place of, you have 3 quotes from from providers you haven't used before. So, there might not be a relationship there, but good point on, especially if it's ongoing services that create those relationships. In most cases, people are going to treat you like how they want to be treated, and they're not going to try to take advantage of the situation. Second question, mitigation factors to have in place and how to address what can be expected by the manufacturers and service providers, realizing we are hard pressed and desperate in need of goods or services to meet our customer demands. So I think this really goes right to what Ed talked about, is good relationships with your current vendors. If you're relying on vendors, you should be creating really good inroads with them. It's a partnership. It's not transactional, and you want to have long-term success with them. So even with service providers, like there's a lot of times when I go and talk about shipping, they feel their shipping rep is the truck driver. That's not the rep, but they create a relationship with the truck driver, which is great because that truck driver does more stuff than he probably should. But again, it's extending that to those relationships of the service providers, so you can get things done and without being taken advantage of. And again, in that environment of manufacturing, of customer demands, if you're looking for parts, you got to have a relationship with your vendors because you're depending on them to get the parts that you need. So that's an important factor. And I know from our perspective, when we look at service providers, we're continuously evaluating how are they performing, not just with my set of clients, but how are they performing with all this Cooley Mitchell. And not just for pricing. Again, it's customer service. Are they doing what they say they're going to do? Do they want to have that relationship? Do they want to have long-term success? We're continually going through that. And to go back to the mitigation part, it goes right back to what Ed said, having relationships with more than one option. We always look at having more than one option for our clients. We're not trying to put all eggs in one basket. We usually have 2, 3, sometimes 4. Okay, another question. How can this be applied to a home-based single employee business? Really good question. So the main thing you have to ask yourself is, what's your biggest cost, or your top 2? If it's a home-based business, you're the employee, it might be shipping. Who are you using shipping? It might be credit card processing or merchant services. So look at those couple items that is really the mainstay of your business, because you don't have infrastructure, you don't have benefits, you don't have leases. It's really, you're shipping products out the door. So what's the cost of that transaction? And there could be more options than you believe are out there. Yes, shipping, there's UPS, FedEx, USPS. Some have good customer service, some struggle, some are good at certain things. So it's just going through that evaluation process. It never hurts to open it up and talk to other providers to see what they might be able to do for you, even in a single employee home-based business. Okay, another one. Even with price quotes, I would imagine they would throw in a rush fee that can be fairly significant and not be a fee that they usually charge. Like your mentions on saying we are having excess demand, second supplier, and like a second manufacturer to step in. Would you like to help us with that? I'm trying to get to what your question is. So the rush fee, yes, there can be. When you're looking at your manufacturer and you need a part built so you can build the part you're manufacturing for your clients, yes, there's expedite fees. Sometimes there's a way around it if you can plan for it. Again, creating a relationship, you might not get the normal expedite fee. Around other areas, if you need a supplier for service, those can be a little bit more complicated, but you can still make changes to it. And I'm talking like merchant services or shipping. Those take a little bit more detail to get something in line with, or to get a second supplier. But that's why when you do your analysis, when you go through this process, you're going to be identifying that. You might choose option A, and let's say, it's supplier X, but you should have, options B and C that might have just missed out that you should still be creating relationships with. So you're not just, you're just not needing that supplier X. And maybe you should buy parts from options B and C. So you can evaluate what they are, do they function, you know, everything, their quality. So you're not in that situation where maybe those other two suppliers won't charge that surcharge, that expedite fee. Let's see, last one I have here, and then I'll get moving on. Would you like to help us with that? Was the question for the example. Okay, not directed at me. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, so I think a good part of it is I appreciate all those questions. You know, you should have relationships, create them when you can. In those scenarios where you're unsure, it's okay to try to find that secondary source and not, you know, not have to say why you're needing their help right now if that relationship isn't there. But again, I think Ed put it great. Really create relationships so you're not in that situation.
Hey,
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move.
hey, Jim, there are some questions in the chat too, so I
Oh,
don't know if you saw those as well.
oh, I did not. Let me see. I missed those. Okay, so what tools or applications can a business owner use for cost optimization? Really good question. So tools or technology for cost optimization, I can share what we use. So at Schooling Mitchell, we have our own customized in-house developed solution. Really what you can utilize is you really got to create a benchmark. So step one, what are you spending for today? Break it off into, you know, core fees, accessorial fees, you know, surcharges, things like that. Because then you're breaking them down into categories. And then once you have them broken down into categories, it's easier when you get quotes from other providers. What are they quoting for the same types of categories within that cost? Don't get caught up into, hey, you know, here's pricing for waste removal. It's $500 a month. Well, what makes up that $500? And then the other thing is, you know, contract terms. Make sure you have inflationary caps. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes is people forget, hey, how can I limit my year over year cost increase in a contract or when a contract renews? So I can't specify a specific tool because we use something that was been developed over the past 20 years at Schooling Mitchell. A lot of it is just looking at breaking things down into the right categories. So you're looking at apples to apples. That's probably one of the big items when you're looking at cost is you're going to get, you know, 4 different quotes and you're trying to go, what are they all saying? Because they don't represent it the same way. And if you break it down initially, then you can ask, hey, this is how we want to present it to us because we're trying to look at things line by line. So I hope that I didn't have a direct answer to that question, so I do apologize. I'm not sure what other, you know, market available software is out there to use. I mean, I think we all have been aware of some of the apps that are out there that you can look at all your, you know, all your subscriptions on. You need something more in depth to look at the data that you have, and you also want to be careful about certain applications because you're opening up some data to those companies. So you want to be careful on what's shared. You want to make sure it's secured. You want to make sure it's viable. One last question. Formula I can use to forecast inflation. Boy, if I knew that formula, I would probably be in a different position right now, especially the past 3 years. I'm not an expert on calculating inflation. I would, you know, probably go to a accounting, fractional CFO, somebody in that network that knows financing, that knows markets, that can make those calculations. We're supposed to be within 2%. That's what the goal is in general, is to be 2% or less. Obviously, over the past 2.5, 3 years, it's been wildly different than that. And it's hard to predict it. It's hard to predict it. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the presentation. Thank you for all those questions. Now we're going to go into some examples. As soon as I get this going here we go. So we're going to look at some fixed costs. So case study, uniforms, linens, and facility supplies. This was a multi-location company. $20,000 a month spent, pretty good spend on that type of service. Found savings of 20% just by optimizing their volumes, meaning what they were getting delivered was more than what they were using. So they didn't need as much of the product that they were getting. So we optimized that, reduced the per unit cost, saved them over $48,000 in total savings each year. Quite incredible story. Client used the savings to invest in the retention of employees and improve facilities. So I'm giving these examples so you can start to think about some of those costs that you might have and what the impact can be. Waste removal, you probably don't hear too much about portable toilets. I'm not sure how many people on this webinar might be renting portable toilets, but it's a great example of, you know, there's a lot of things that can get out of mind. And this was one for this manufacturing client. They had multiple locations, but on one site they had two rentals. We recommended a switch in vendors. They weren't under contract, so it was a really straightforward switch. Provided 83% savings or over $14,000 annually in savings for portable toilet rentals. Very impactful. And it was a situation that the client's just trying to get leaner and meaner, just trying to streamline, be more efficient today. Waste removal. So this is traditional waste removal. This was a manufacturing company. Cost got out of mind. When we went in there, utilized benchmarks and market expertise, found savings to pay off an existing loan 18 months early. I mentioned how some of this could help you reduce your debt. This is a great example that they became much leaner because they were able to use those savings you're paying for waste removal and pay off an existing commercial loan. Talk about telecom. We all in one form or another are using telecom. This was a multi-location retailer, needed to upgrade communications. They were still on copper lines. If they were going to call another location, they would have to dial the full number instead of just an extension. Converted them to a voice over IP technology, savings of roughly $2,600 a month, or over 3 years, savings were over $93,000. So this is another consideration of, it's not just what are you saving next month, what are you saving this year, it's what can accumulate, because if you don't look at it today, that cost is still going to be there. And then that's money you're just leaving on the table. Let's talk about some variable costs, merchant services. So this is manufacturing client, multiple locations. They had an integrated system. So when they ran a credit card process through, it had to talk to and be integrated to their accounting system. We were able, first off, when we did that, remember that initial review, talked about, you know, contracts and price benchmarks and all that stuff. Well, we found a billing error because we're looking at their statements, and we looked at their contract. We said, hey, what you're getting billed for today is not what they agreed to in the contract. So we found a billing error of over $7,000. We were able to get it fully refunded to the client. Due to that billing error, the client wanted to switch providers. Didn't feel comfortable staying with the current provider. We found another provider, saved nearly 30%. Annual savings of almost $30,000 a year is projected. We're still in the first year of implementation. Client is using those savings to invest in new equipment. One point I do want to bring up, I meant to mention earlier, when we talk about cost savings, it doesn't mean it has to switch. Very good opportunities that you can provide savings with current providers. So don't let that be another roadblock for you. There's an opportunity when you look at it that you could get savings, and that's part of the low-hanging fruit. Hey, if we just stayed with who we have, but we save a little bit, well, that's great. Nothing changes, but you're saving money. So don't always think that, you know, the cost savings and every case study is a change in vendor. A lot of times it's staying with the same vendor. Case study with fuel. This was a trucking distribution company, had existing fleet cards. By us utilizing a broadband and network suppliers. Now this is where pennies turn into dollars. So 6 cents per gallon created $100,000 in annual savings. Fuel was one of those unique ones. You do need a lot of volume to get savings out of it. But again, if you're using fuel because you're a service organization and you have trucks out on the road, it should be something you can look at. Because again, it's just, that could be low hanging fruit, savings for your business. Some variable costs. Now these are costs that are aligned more to your sales, to the growth of your business. So we're going to look at small package shipping. This one I wanted to share because this was part of ongoing savings. This was part of that annual market review I mentioned. That should be part of your process. Identified shipping habits change, identified there was changing in pricing in the marketplace. So had multiple clients that we identified where we incremental savings without changing any vendors. No vendors were changed in the process. We just found a new opportunity for savings. Across the clients that we did this with, the savings doubled. So today, picture this in your business. They were saving, 15 to 20%. We identified there's an opportunity. They said, yes, let's go do it. Now they're saving 30 to 40%. And if that process wasn't in place with us, it would have been money again left on the table that they were missing out on. That's why it's important to be proactive and have that annual market review. LTL, manufacturing company, looking ways to save money. This was driving because they wanted to drive for savings. Recommend staying with the current supplier. Identified where we can optimize. 19% savings found. Projected savings of over to $80,000 in over 3 years. Okay, I'm going to run through these process costs. Inventory. This is one of the ones that's very important. This one here, they were buying to forecast. So inventory was growing because they weren't selling to forecast. So they realigned it so procurement was in line with actual demand. Now, this is a big number, nearly $7 million within 9 months. Not sure who might have that. That's on the webinar, has that inventory. But here's the big number to take away from it. 41% reduction in inventory. If you're holding any kind of inventory, look to see what you can do better. Because that number there, 41%, if you could do 41%, or you can even do half that, 20%, how is that going to impact your business? It's one of the most overlooked items. A lot of us that are in that service or manufacturing, we're always worried about somebody's going to call. We're not going to have something on the shelf. But don't have 10 things on the shelf when it's going to take 6 months for somebody to call to buy 5 of them. That doesn't make sense. This was provided by Mike Ryan with the M. Ryan Group. That's his expertise, is inventory management. This is a case study on Lean Ops, manufacturing company. They had issues. They were upside down. Delivery, schedule problems, process problems, quality. Mapped out operations, did 5S exercises, remapped the layout of the operations. So they reclaimed footage to triple the capacity, changed the mindset of the employees that, everything that they're doing on each process is to serve the client. This went from $12 million to over $20 million in sales. Now, this is a sales growth item. This was provided by Nick Coda of LeanWorks. He does a great job on the Lean Ops side, but there's inherent savings to this process. It was hard for them to identify the savings, but again, this is showing you can do both. You can get savings. There's inherent cost savings here while growing the sales. Okay, I'm going to go quick through the insurance costs. I'm not an expert in any way on insurance, but it's something you'd be aware of. Healthcare, human management, payroll, all of these can be very impactful to your business if you have them. Insurance, everybody should have some kind of insurance policy. I do for my business. I just went over with it last week, made sure my coverages were right size, made sure what my costs were going to be today. You want to be right for your business. And there could be cost savings that could be impacting you today. So the what if factors, when you do all that stuff, I hope nobody looks like that, the picture on the screen. I hope everybody's happy and excited and ready to go on cost optimization. But this is what you got to think about. The what if. If you could save 10,000 or 20,000 or more in savings today, that what if, how would that change your business? How would that be impactful? And then you got to ask yourself, do you want to find the possible savings or stick your head in the sand? I unfortunately talk to too many business owners that feel that they're okay. They don't need to look at costs. They feel they're in the right place, and they won't even do a double check to say, are we really paying what we should be? Could we do better? And that's unfortunately a mistake that happens too often. Don't let that be you. All right, last item. I told you I'm a fisherman. My tackle box is much more diverse than that one. Much more. Probably have about two or three more of those too. But again, you're doing your business because you know how to do it. You're experts in it. You do a great job at it because you have the right lures to make it happen. It's all about finding the right lure for cost optimization. If that's internal or if that's external, that's what you have to do. Put the right thing in place to maximize your cost optimization process. And that's all I have today. I think there might be there's another one in the Q&A. Let me see. Okay, there might be a couple here. With what aspects of a contract can we expect to have the most or least negotiating leverage when drafting a contract? Great question. So when you're negotiating contracts, there just should be certain things you're going to ask for. Like I want either no term for renewal, meaning, hey, we're going to be on month to month, or I want an annual, or I want a 3-year. There's a lot of places that want 3-year, 5-year, sometimes 7. So depending on your business and the type of service providing, I always like shrinking lower if you can, right? That gives you more flexibility. Then you want to, so that's item 1. How long is the contract for? What's the inflation caps or the annual rate increases? Negotiate that in. I've seen too many contracts that there's no caps, which means you sign up today. Hey, we're paying $500 a month for this service. 6 months later, they raise it 25%. And guess what? They can. That doesn't mean you can't go back and go, hey, this isn't right. We just signed this 6 months ago. But put everything in place you can for that contract. So term, inflationary caps, the ability to get out of the contract, that's those auto renewal cancellations. So there's those things. Can you do a re-rate within a contract term? So there's things that you can ask for. I would ask for whatever you can, but have at least those basics that you can. That becomes part of the negotiating process. Maybe you sign up for a 3-year deal, but now you have inflation caps of 5%, so you're protected. Because now that they do raise it 25%, you can go, no, look, we just signed that. This is what it is. So be steadfast on some of those stellar ones that you can and you would like to have in place. Another question, if I'm running an e-commerce business shipping clothing products, what's the best and fastest way to determine cost optimization with the different shipping companies? Another good question. So the best way to do it is you have to get your data. So you got to get your shipping data. Get at least 3 months worth. If you can get a year's worth, that's best. For shipping, electronic's best. You should be able to download it from your whatever carrier you have. Download the data. Look at what you're paying for. And it can be a little bit cryptic. Not too many places like to make it easy for you to determine what you're doing. But once you have the data, now you can share that with the other providers and go, hey, here's my shipping history. This is what we do, sizes of packages, weights of packages, ground or overnight, going to these zones. Because now you have the data. Now they can bid for you and you can look at it and you can start going, okay, this is what I know I'm paying for on a per package basis, or at least on a per month basis based on the month of June. What would it look like for these other companies bidding on it? First, get the data and then see what type of packages that you have. And then just understand some carriers do better than others, depending on the type of packages. Like from my experience, FedEx does a great job on letters and small packages. UPS is better for that, middleweight items. And USPS is good for more of those set box items. But sometimes, it takes a little bit longer to get there. So you just got to evaluate, again, know your data. That's the biggest thing that you can do for the shipping standpoint. And let's see. I think that's...
Hey, Jim, can I throw something in there?
Sure.
Yeah, before I retired, that's kind of what I did, but not on small packages. It was on bigger packages. And once you know what the various shipping small parcel LTL or small partial shipments, what their rates are. I mean, if you're like an Excel person at all, you should be able to like create, or somebody maybe could create a little model that you plug your data into, and it'll tell you the least cost to get it there, you know?
Yep. Yep. Good point. I mean, you got to know the data, put it in a format that you can analyze it. Like you said, if you're good in Excel, there's a lot of things you can do in Excel to look at, to analyze that data. But you need to you need to get it, you need to understand it first. And then you have people giving you quotes based on raw data. And that's the apples to apples that you need. You don't need somebody coming in and saying, well, hey, we're going to give you, UPS is giving you 50% off. We're going to give you 65. Well, 65% off of what? And is it going to fit my shipping profile? So those are the things that you got to have the data so you can look at apples to apples and make them show you the savings. Make them do the math for you. You should also verify it. You got to do your homework, but make them do work too and show how are you getting these savings. You're telling me, you're quoting me this. You're telling me this is the additional savings or the additional discount. Show me how it affects me. That's a big part of it. And then you verify it. You run through the math yourself. Good question. And then, for that one being an e-commerce business, you could look at it the same on the merchant services side. If any company's coming to you going and not knowing your data going, hey, I'm going to give you a rate of 2%, and you go, 2% of what? And how do you know what I'm paying now and if that's better or not? Anybody that does that, it's a transactional proposition. They're looking to get a sale. Just be wary of that. You want people that want to see your data first, that want to understand what you're doing, and then provide an opportunity to go, hey, this is how we can help you. And here's the math behind it. Here's the work behind it. We're going to show you how we're going to drive savings to your business. So I think we're at our time here. If nobody has any other questions, I'm at the end of my presentation. I appreciate everybody's time today. Really good interaction on the questions. So I appreciate that very much.
Hey, Jim, is there a chance you could flip to that? Hey, Ken, you're gonna get a copy of the PowerPoint, so just you can find the score information there. But if you just go to score.org, I think, and they could hook you up with a chapter that you live close to. If you're in Canton, you can look at canton.score.org. Um, should have us there. So I think Jim's kind of back scrolling here to get
I'm trying to
the phone
back
number.
scroll. I got too many clicks I got to go through. There's a go-to slide option. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, Antonio, my email is ed.cook@scorevolunteer.org. And I'll be more than glad to help you. So,
Okay, give me 1 second. This is the best way for me to do it. And then I'll reshare. There's the screen.
there you go. Thanks, Jim.
Yep, you're welcome. Sorry that took longer than it should have.
Yeah, that's all right. I'd be the same way. So score.org. Okay, /Canton. So my bad. So there's a phone number and our email address. So Jim, thank you so much for your time. I think the participants got a lot out of it. There's a lot of information there, and there's a lot of opportunities that people just don't realize, especially small businesses. So with that, thank you all for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
So long, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ed. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Glenn. Bye-bye.